Today, there's 4,000 career choices,
No way.
and every day we hear of new things. Prompt engineering. Who ever heard of prompt engineering
Right.
6 months ago,
Right.
right? So now it's that much more difficult. I've had this experience where kids have said, "Oh, I'm going to be an engineer," and I said, "Wonderful, good for you. You figured it out. You're a step ahead of majority of the kids I meet." And what kind of engineer are you going to be? Do you know how many engineering fields there are? Over 110. So here's my question. If you know you're going to be an engineer, shouldn't you at least know all your options? That's the worst way for you to study. You're a kinesthetic learner. And that's the first time I'm hearing about it. And so she explained to me what kinesthetic learners are. And she said, "You're so obviously a kinesthetic learner. I mean, watch me. Even while you're talking to me right now, I'm in motion doing something, right? This is how I process information. And this is how I learn." Especially children today who are doubting themselves or wondering, what am I here for? What am I made for? There are children who are struggling with home situations. There are children who are struggling with various other situations. But they have a place. I want to assure you, you have a place in the world. I don't see creativity as a static thing. I see it as a fluid thing, which is why at every stage it is important that you keep also assessing yourself, because what gets measured is what gets done.
Hi, welcome to the Creative Artist Podcast. My name is Sharon, and today I have a interesting gentleman who went through some interesting life circumstances that was a very pivotal moment in their life, and kind of came full circle to a point where now he's part of an organization that actually helps humans understand themselves and actually get to a better place of being really understood and by themselves and people around themselves. I'm super grateful for Yousuf for taking the time. Welcome, Yousuf. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So, first of all, basic question: what do you do, and how do you explain it to somebody who has no idea about your field?
I help people identify their talent and plan how to leverage it so that they can live a fulfilling, productive life. Now, while this sounds very straightforward and like a fancy soundbite, it takes a lot of work because people are very complex beings and they're each unique. So it's not like you can do a cookie cutter system where you just take one and then replicate it for 10 other people. We do this using a process called psychometric assessments, which is a part of psychology. And I'm a certified counselor. We work with a company called Brain Checker. I'm the country head for Brain Checker in Sri Lanka. We have 154 franchises across the world, including mostly in all in South Asia, mostly in India, including in the UAE, Nepal, and now in Sri Lanka, which my wife and I decided to bring down.
How long ago was this?
This was last year. So we'd been in talks with them for over a year and finally made the decision and went ahead with it October last year.
I'm curious, what were the deciding factors and the yearning for you all to actually bring this down to Sri Lanka?
So there are two things. One is, I don't mean this in a negative way, but the state of Sri Lanka at the time. What I mean by that is post-economic collapse, post-April bombings, post-COVID. So there were a lot of things that everybody was struggling from top to bottom. I mean, COVID lockdowns affected everybody. And so I could understand that people were genuinely struggling with finding direction. The second thing was a personal reason. I had the opportunity to study in the US as an undergraduate in Florida, Jacksonville. And you know how we are taught to study, right? Sit quiet, watch me, look at me. If you look the other way, you're being disobedient, right? This is the education system, and this is how I learned to study. And I was one of those kids who just got through in school without having to take too much trouble. And every meeting, parents-teachers meeting, my father, before he would come to it, would say, let me tell you what the teachers are going to say today.
Oh.
He can do better, but he doesn't apply himself. And this was my entire school life. But I managed to breeze through. It was fine. When I ended up in the US, obviously things were very different. Not just the education system, but the entire culture, how things function.
Yes.
I mean, simple things like opening doors I had to relearn because, as you would know, in the US, doors open outwards. Whereas we're used to doors opening inwards.
I never thought about that, actually.
Yeah. So like when rushing to classes, if I wasn't consciously thinking, pull the door, I would bang into the door. And this would happen so frequently. And people were like, what's wrong with you? But the thing is that I had to relearn a lot of things.
Yeah.
Right? So the system was very different. And part of that was that every campus has a psychologist for various reasons. And finally, when I was there, and I was really struggling in my first semester. And first semester is basics, right? It's 101 this and 101 that. And I was really struggling to get through and studying to the point where I was thinking about actually quitting and coming back home. And I happened to go speak to the psychologist. And she said, how do you study? So I explained to her, sit straight, watch and listen to the teacher. And then when I'm reading my notes, I'm like constantly reading it to myself. Rote memorization is how we were taught to learn, right? And she looks at me and she goes, that's the worst way for you to study. You're a kinesthetic learner. And that's the first time I'm hearing about it. And so she explained to me what kinesthetic learners are. And she said, you're so obviously a kinesthetic learner. I mean, watch me. Even while you're talking to me right now, I'm in motion doing something, right? This is how I process information. And this is how I learn. And so she explained to me how I should be learning.
Real quick, kinesthetic learning. Can you explain that a little bit more?
So there are three ways anybody in general learns. One is visual, one is auditory, and one is kinesthetic. Visual learners learn through visual information.
Okay.
I'm going to guess more than likely you are a visual learner the way you are watching me and everything I do. Auditory learners learn through sound. I'm not going to say they don't learn through the other ways. I'm saying the most effective way. And then kinesthetic learners learn by motion through the senses of touch. So I remember so distinctly when I was, and when we do our assessments, by the way, we can definitively tell you there are scientific ways of identifying, even for kids as young as 3 years old, what kind of a learner they are. So that before you, for example, the advantage for parents is before you teach them a style of learning that's contrary to who the child is, you have the opportunity to actually understand. Because just because I learn kinesthetically doesn't mean my son is a kinesthetic. This is not a genetic thing that's transferred, right? So I have to know what my child's way of learning is. And I'll have to learn how to teach him because his natural style, if it's different to mine, is not going to resonate with me.
Correct.
Right? So coming back to, so she explained to me what kinesthetic, and I remember even at that time she'd given me a pencil and I kept doing this with the pencil, right? Because even my mind telling me sit straight, it's not happening because it's so natural to me. And this changed my entire, definitely it changed my college career, but it changed my entire life because you're processing information all the time, right?
Yes.
In meetings, we're talking to people. Right now, we're running businesses, we're having, conferences, whatnot. And I actually ended up doing 2 degrees.
Wow.
Instead of, while I was struggling with the one and couldn't figure it out, I ended up doing 2 degrees in communications and political science. And that changed my entire life. That's not an understatement. I want to emphasize that.
Absolutely.
It just changed my entire life. Then one thing led to another. I came back to Sri Lanka. I didn't go back to the US. I stayed here and then inevitably got into the family business, whatever the circumstances were. But this experience just stood out for me. And when I started seeing that the education system really in Sri Lanka hadn't changed much since when I was young, which was a pity. And I always thought there should be a way to, help kids not have to wait till they are 19 years old to discover. And then how many kids have given up on education by that point, right?
Exactly. I'm one of those.
That's a waste.
Yeah.
So I happened to, through BNI, are you familiar with BNI?
Yeah, you can actually mention what that is.
BNI is Business Network International. It's an organization with a lot of chapters across the world. We have, I think, 16 in Sri Lanka right now. And the entire goal of the organization is to help each other generate leads and referrals. So there are people from different industries who come together, and there's a formal structure. And we have weekly meetings through which we help others get business. So through BNI, I met another BNI member, Dr. Ashwin Raje in India, who started telling me about his company, Brain Checker, and just something went off in my head. I was like, this is what I've been looking for.
Wow.
And it took me about a year to verify, authenticate. Obviously, we're talking counseling, we're talking psychology. This is not a small thing, and especially with regards to children.
Right.
There's a huge responsibility that comes with that. We tell parents certain things about their children based on which they will be making decisions about their future. So it has to be when they come back to me 10 years later, 20 years later, I still should be able to stand by what I said because they've made decisions based on that, right? So it took me about a year to satisfy myself that this was something that was what I wanted, but more what they said it is exactly what it was. And then we brought the franchise to Sri Lanka. That's how... And the timing seemed right because there's already a national conversation going on about the education system and how things need to change. And while everybody will agree that things need to change, nobody's going to agree on how they need to change and what needs to be done.
Right.
And in the process of figuring that out, there's going to be a few generations, I hope not, but history tells us that there's going to be a few generations that are going to get caught in the fray and we'll have to figure things out. Plus, it's your responsibility to figure out what you want to do in life.
Absolutely.
Everybody has a talent and a capacity. Everybody's not fortunate enough to be able to identify that at a stage in life at which they can make the decision. And some people still struggle. I've met people in their 50s, 60s who are still figuring things out, right?
Yes.
And so these assessments, because they're scientifically validated, created by psychologists, we brought them down, and I'm so grateful that we have the opportunity to make a difference in people's lives, one person at a time.
We're so excited to share with you all the episodes that we filmed in Sri Lanka. We know a lot of you have been waiting, but we wanted to make sure that we did this really meaningfully because it really was an exciting time. When Sharon first came to me and said he was going to take the podcast to Sri Lanka, I honestly thought he was crazy.
And so did I. I was like, is there any possibility we can fit this in? I want to try to bring the podcast there and get to know people and interview creatives. So
we expected to have just a few conversations, maybe a little sparks of inspiration here and there, but what happened was so much deeper than that. We met so many people that not only you got to interview, but that also came alongside us to help make these conversations happen.
The crazy thing was this daring idea of going to a country, even though I'm from Sri Lanka. I hadn't been back for 7 years. And all I knew was some people from school that I went to and some on social media that I've been following, but didn't really have a concrete plan to make it happen. And some days we had 6-7 episodes back to back recorded because people were waiting and you were kind of facilitating that.
Yeah, so it felt really significant because not only was it that we were having these raw and authentic conversations, but a lot of their stories resonated with Sharon's, and so it just was really fascinating to see them speaking the same language and to see just this commonality of creativity and identity and purpose coming out as the themes of these conversations.
You must be wondering when this trip happened. It happened in September, and the goal was to get these episodes out by December or last year. Well, a lot of things happened, and I didn't want to diminish the work we put in and, again, the amazing guests that we've had. So we decided to do something really cool, and we're going to post however many we can a week.
So linked in every single episode, you'll find a free PDF. It's actually a magazine that we developed. You can kind of think of it like if you go to a concert and you get the souvenir of what happened behind the scenes and just about the different artists and all those things. We wanted to share with you not only about Sharon's journey, but then help you connect with some of the guests that we interview in Sri Lanka, and then invite you on your own creative odyssey.
Yes, there's so much more that goes into or that fuels this podcast, which is this mission to inspire people to create so that they can get to know themselves and connect with their inner child. So to see that we could bring that story out of Sri Lankan creatives, a wide, diverse range of creatives, was definitely a highlight.
Our hope is that whether you're living in the States, you're living in Sri Lanka, or somewhere else around the world, you'll connect with someone's story within Sri Lanka, and it might inspire you to continue on your own creative odyssey.
The link to the PDF of the magazine is in the description, and please check it out. They're doing really cool things that I really think you should be checking out to see their journeys. So without further ado, let's get to the episode. So it's been about more than a year now, correct? Or a year?
Coming to a year in October.
How's been the response from Sri Lankans especially, and what are some of the stories, maybe one or two you can tell me about?
The response has generally been quite positive. The biggest thing actually has been marketing the product, in the sense of the concept is so alien to most people. It takes a while to actually understand what we do and how we're going to go about it and how it helps them. So once that understanding has been achieved, they're very much for it, right? So it's not the product itself, it's the understanding of the product that's been. So that way the response has been, and once they understand it, the response has been overwhelming. I mean, there are times when we're struggling to schedule things into the day, because what we do is we get the report, then we sit with all the parents individually. That takes about 2.5 to 3 hours because we go through the entire report.
Wow.
So it's a comprehensive report that we're talking about. So the response has been good. With regards to stories, while making sure I maintain privacy.
Absolutely.
See, again, each child is different, right? And each human being is different and unique, and have scientific evidence now to show that, right? I think generally what we find parents struggle with, one is seeing the direction the world is going in, seeing the environment and the way I grew up. How do I now relate to who my child is and, excuse me, help them figure things out. That's one kind of parent that we get generally. And then the other kind of parent that we get is, I'm going to let them figure it out on their own, like I figured it out on my own. With the first category of parents, we get things like, I'm finding this to be a challenge, right? So for example, teachers say he's very disciplined, very organized, right? But here's where the problem is. Or, at home, we see this. At school, we see this. When they're with friends, we see this, right? Or why do they constantly make up stories? Are they intentionally being deceptive, right? So oftentimes, especially as we go into the teenage years and we help with career guidance as well, oftentimes children are now more exposed to the world and have access to information and things like that more than any previous generation ever did.
Absolutely, yeah.
So parents are struggling to keep up with, and how do I connect with my child? So these are the kind of issues that come up. And by the way, when you were young, you probably had 5 options to choose from in Sri Lanka.
Right.
Engineering, doctor, right? So the irony is that when you had 5 choices, it was easier to choose. Today, there's 4,000 career choices.
No way.
And every day we hear of new things. Prompt engineering. Who ever heard of prompt engineering 6 months ago, right? So now it's that much more difficult. One. Second, if you came to me, and I've had this experience where kids have said, I'm going to be an engineer. And I said, wonderful, good for you. You figured it out. You're a step ahead of majority of the kids I meet. And what kind of engineer are you going to be? How many can you name? 5, 7. If they've really done some research, 10, 12. Do you know how many engineering fields there are?
No.
Over 110.
Jeez.
So here's my question. If you know you're going to be an engineer, shouldn't you at least know all your options?
Wow.
If you only know 12,
Right.
you're most likely to know the 12 most common, which every other guy is anyway going to do. But more importantly, how do you know that your talents, your abilities, your capacities is the best to have for in the field that you've chosen? In fact, isn't it better to have a more unique kind of engineering where there is more demand for your skill set?
Correct.
So no matter what stage of life parents, no matter what stage of parenting parents are at, or no matter what stage children are at, we have something that can help you understand yourself better and leverage whatever strengths that you have more. So that is to one category. The parents who say, oh, I'm going to let them figure it out. Didn't I figure it out eventually? I said, yes, absolutely. I mean, if you're confident that you figured it out, yes.
Yeah.
But then I follow that up with, don't you find yourself in circumstances where suddenly you're thrown into something new? Like when we get, at BNI, we have people who come when they're 35, 40, and then they have to make presentations and suddenly they're like, oh, I never realized I like this, right? So that means you're still figuring out, right? If you had figured it out, you should know by a certain age that you had this capacity. And by the way, kids, by the time they're 3, have most of their personality formed. Most of their talents are already identifiable. But it's not necessary that a child will be able to figure it out even when they become an adult or even thereafter. Because how you get to learn about the world in the same way you have to get to learn about yourself. And our assessments help you to understand that. So if your child has an ability to be a good sports person, we can also go further and tell you whether it's going to be good at target sports or full body sports like swimming.
Wow.
And we use Howard Gardner's multiple intelligence theory primarily to help with this. And Howard Gardner's approach that he suggested for helping you figure it out was there are 8 multiple intelligences. 6 months, put your child in one class. So for example, if say music, let them learn music for 6 months. Then visual intelligence, let them do something graphics for 6 months. Then let them do another something for 6 months, 6 months, 6 months, 6 months. So at the end of 4 years, when they have had a chance to test every single intelligence, you ask them, okay, which one did you like? The child is not even going to remember what they did in the first year, right? If you're going to help them figuring it out, at least, then this is what parents need to do. So you give your child a fair chance to figure it out.
Okay.
Right? And most people won't do that. They don't have the financial capacity. Yeah. They don't have the time anymore. In a lot of places, both parents are working now. And if you have more than one, this is for one kid. If you have more than one child, good luck.
Yeah.
Right? So no, children don't have the ability to figure it out. Think when you were 13, 14 and had to choose O-level subjects. Were you able to figure it out? No. So I respectfully disagree with all parents who say I'm going to let them figure it out because they're not going to. And these kinds of assessments on the spot within a span of 7 days tell you exactly, scientifically tested, exactly who your child is, what their capacities are, so that you can help them figure it out.
Wow.
Right? It's a tool to help you figure it out. I hope I answered your question.
More than.
Okay.
First of all, I wish I knew about this ahead of time because I would have actually come and met you just to understand about myself.
Right.
Because I think I'm also curious about some of the research that you use, and you mentioned you would like to refer to some of this research you have. And second of all, isn't it true that a person evolves, right? Constantly evolves, and they will have it's not the same job for 35 years and then you retire or something like that, right? You're constantly evolving. So how do you guys suggest adults, if they were to come to you, right? How do you suggest that adults navigate these kind of different changes they can make, especially nowadays? It's a common thing.
Right. So we have two assessments that we do currently for adults. One is called the Tycoon Entrepreneurial Assessment. We do that for CXO minus one entrepreneurs to help them answer this question.
Very cool.
We also have for managerial level employees kind of people. That's called an HPACT assessment. So that's what we use to help them figure it out. But the thing is, taking a step back, Brain Checker, two very unique things about Brain Checker. One, all our assessments are created by our psychologists. We work with over 40 PhD experts, right? So Dr. Ashwin Raj and Dr. K.R. Raja, the founders of the company, are psychologists themselves. And we create our own assessments because most psychometric assessments today are either North American or European. So when you do an assessment, Sharan, the baseline measurement by which you're going to be measured is North American or European, which means you're never going to be 100% at anything, right? Because our values are different.
Okay, right.
Our situations are different.
Yes.
Right? Our culture is different. So the baseline needs to be ours, South Asian. So that is one of the reasons that the company created this.
I mean, it's funny you mentioned that. I remember taking Myers-Briggs and these kinds of different kinds of things.
Right.
And I feel like something is off here. Like, I don't always fit into the categories.
Right.
So it makes sense. I mean, especially like I think at a very crucial point in my life, I did a career survey and to figure out my direction. And that's actually how I became a chef too, because they had like nurse, teacher, artist, chef, and something else. There was only 5 options. I was also very annoyed at the fact that there was only 5 choices.
Okay.
So I gave up on all the other ones based on my understanding of myself.
Right.
So I became a chef. But it's very interesting that you bring that up. Gosh, man, this is so healing to hear this.
So why you have only 5 options, we'll have to come back to.
Yeah, of course.
But here's the other thing, and you mentioned Myers-Briggs, which is very important. So that's the second thing. The second reason the company has our own assessments is because just a Myers-Briggs or just a career aptitude isn't going to give you a comprehensive idea of who you are.
Yes.
That's insufficient information.
I agree.
Right? And then when you have to do 5-6 different kinds of assessments, then it's $100 here, $200 here, $50. And then, before you know it, you've spent a buttload of money.
Yes.
And still trying to figure it out.
Yes.
Because now you have to synthesize this information, put it all together, and how different pieces interact. You're not a counselor or a psychologist. How are you going to be able to do that, right? So that's the second unique thing at Brain Checker is our assessments measure on those multiple criteria. So if you're a tycoon, if you come to me for a tycoon assessment, we measure you on 6 parameters: leadership, motivation, stress management, financial capacities, right? All the things that an entrepreneur would need to know about themselves. So similarly for students, we have multiple parameters that we measure on. Are you left brain thinker, right brain thinker? Are you an effective learner? Are you a self-starter? Right? So all these components, we bring it together, which is why it's not so much our reports, while they are unique, it is our approach to how we communicate that information to you.
Wow.
And how we guide you to leverage that. I mean, there's no point in a doctor telling you to do a blood test. You do a blood test and he hands it over to you and says, here's your blood test, all the best.
Right.
What are you going to do with that?
Right.
Right? And while the report is the same, to each person, how the results are applicable, the blood test, varies. So you need the doctor to tell you that, okay, for you it's this medication or this diet change or whatever it is. Same thing with us. So while the metrics and the parameters are all the same, each child is unique, and how do you apply that? So with our company, this is what we do. So these are the 2 things about Brain Checker that are very important. See, it's like this. My child, who is 2 years old right now, might have an aptitude for playing musical instruments, right? We will know that for sure at any time we can test him after 3 and we can verify that. But that doesn't mean he has the physical ability to hold the guitar and play the strings and understand the strings. I know he has an ability. It doesn't mean that he is going to be able to do it right now. So the evolution is more your brain developing and your body developing for certain capacity, I'm talking about children,
Got it.
that then it starts to show that they have that ability. Now, if he has an aptitude for music, but I never gave him a musical instrument,
Right.
he would still have that aptitude. But how is he going to figure it out? Right? Which is why Dr. Gardner said you have to give them an opportunity. So 6 months you have to give them a minimum amount of time, and then you have to give them the opportunity to decide over a 4-year period which one they want. So to answer your question, so even as adults, we're constantly experiencing things, right? And those experiences shape how we respond or how we react to certain things.
Correct.
But see, for example, if you're an extrovert and there's an introvert on this side, it's a spectrum. At certain times, you might be an extreme extrovert
Yes.
if you're classified as an extrovert, and certain times you might be such an extrovert that people might consider you introverted, but you're still an extrovert. You're just moving on that spectrum, right? So as you evolve, circumstances, situations, you move on that spectrum. But the fact that you're an extrovert doesn't change, right? So this is actually how the evolution happens. Your musical talents aren't going to go away, right? But again, for it to be something, especially something that you can monetize and leverage, you have to keep working at it.
Correct.
Right? And so at whatever point in life, the things that you're experiencing or the things you're working on, that's what is going to show. And then the other things are not. But it's still there nonetheless. Does that answer your question?
I think so.
So we help this for adults, we help this with children. Now imagine when your child is 3, at the age of 3, knowing exactly what their capacities are. And here's my other thing about the education system. You go to a parents-teachers meeting, they never say your child is good at this. They always say, weak at this, bad at this is the problem, right? Why are we focusing on that? Why is nobody saying, here's what your child is good at. Here's where you need to invest your time and money. The maths teacher never says, he's bad at maths, but I know he's super bad English. Let's not worry about mathematics.
Right.
Let's focus on his English so that he can leverage that and go somewhere, because his weakness, you work on it, it's definitely going to improve, but it's only going to improve marginally relative to what his natural strength is. If he works on that, that's going to improve multiples. So that's what he needs to be doing. See, this is my other thing. Our approach, and my wife is a teacher. She actually is a maths teacher.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And she's got a bachelor's in education as well. And she was teaching for 10 years. And she always says what she enjoys about the business the most is she has the opportunity to tell parents what their children are good at and how they can leverage those strengths relative to when she was in school or had to teach. It was like, oh, they need to do this, they need to do that. And then we spend so much money and time on extra classes and pushing our kids, and that affects our relationship.
Yes.
Right? And so many other variables come into play. Whereas, why can't we just leverage their strengths? We identify their strengths, we leverage their strengths. Same application or the same philosophy applies to you as an adult, as a business owner. Because as a business owner, you're constantly evolving.
Correct.
Right? Various situations keep coming up. So it's good to know what are your strengths. One business owner who did the assessment said to me, listen, if you can tell me one thing in the next 5 years that I'm not doing right now that I should be doing, and one thing I'm doing currently that is not in line with who I am or how I should manage this business, I've more than made up for this investment.
Right.
And we did that for him.
Wow.
And one of the things, he was looking at expanding his business, and expanding usually means getting on more people.
Exactly.
And one of the things that our assessment told him is he is not a people manager, and if he tries to increase his team to a size beyond his capacity, he'll get bogged down in the people issues rather than what he is, which is a visionary leader. So he doesn't pay attention to the details. And so when we told him this, he made a conscious decision to invest in processes and systems. He got in softwares for his accounting. He got in CRM systems, these kinds of things. Though he knew he was eventually going to get to that point, but it wasn't at the point that he thought he was at right now. He just thought getting more people would help him figure it out. But he made this switch. And I think it's been about 6 months, and he's very happy with how things are going because he knows, and he realized also that he would get so bogged down in people problems that it would affect his business. And if you're not the kind of person who's able to manage people and you have to deal with people every day, obviously you're not fulfilling your potential, right?
Exactly.
And so this is what it gets. I mean, this is the core of the issue that we try to address.
That's super insightful because I used to manage like 70, 80 employees as a chef.
Okay.
And I hated to the point because I enjoyed the employee relationships. I was good at motivating them. But I think the thing that I struggled was with the bureaucracy of some of the things that I had to deal with. And I kind of came up with this narrative that I will never manage people. But then as I'm going on this journey now, doing what I love and what I'm passionate about, I foresee that I'm going to have employees. And it's interesting you mentioned that I've been like actually trying to understand what went wrong there, what are the things that and so I'm actually going to be calling you because I think this is really helpful.
Most welcome. We have something called Holland Codes, which is part of our assessment. Without taking up too much time to go into detail, Holland Codes is something where basically there are 6 classifications. For example, we have enterprising, we have social, we have conventional. The theory of Holland is that when the codes of the job role and the codes of the individual match, then that's a good fit for that role. So for example, conventional is about being a 9 to 5, following rules, right? These kinds of things. Especially in Sri Lanka, labor laws are extremely rigid. And overbearing. Let's be very honestly overbearing. And if you're not the kind of person who is conventional and wants to get into the details of things, you're never going to be happy with doing that.
Correct.
And enterprising is more business oriented, a people's kind of a person, right? So this is part of our thing where we help you also to identify not just careers or your aptitude for certain things, but actually the kind of person you are and which types of careers would match for this. And Holland Codes is one of the tools that we use as well. So this is something that you need to know about yourself.
Absolutely.
So that as you go forward in your business as well, you understand which direction you need to go and which direction to take your business for the kind of person you are.
That's very powerful. Gosh. I could keep going on this topic. Real quick. So the podcast is called The Creative Odyssey, the journey a creative person goes through and the identity and all of those things, right? From your perspective, from a child to an adult, how do you see this aspect of creativity playing in the role, especially when you do assessments and things like that?
See, creativity comes in many forms, right? Even a farmer can be creative.
Yes.
And they are coming out with various things, right? And it is those people who are creative enough in their professions or fields, who are bold enough, if you want to use another word, who actually see success. So our assessments help you to identify that. Now, as a child, it's a different kind of metric. As a teenager, it's a different kind of metric. As an adult, it's different kind of metric. But when you're a business owner, you're constantly have to find solutions to situations, right? That's also a kind of creativity, creative problem solving.
Correct.
Right? Conflict resolution, finding innovative ways to resolve conflicts is something. When you're in the workplace, when you're a manager, right? So for me, I don't see creativity, and partly as a result of what I've been doing over the last year, I don't see creativity as a static thing. I see it as a fluid thing.
Got it.
Which is why at every stage it is important that you keep also assessing yourself, because what gets measured is what gets done, right? So as I don't want to say the creative nature evolves necessarily. I don't know that for a fact one way or the other.
Okay.
But what I know for sure is different situations require different kinds of creativity.
Correct.
Right? And as that evolves, you want to be able to know whether this is something that you have the capacity to be creative enough to get into or not. And if so, who is the kind of person you'd want in that situation? that can, leverage their creative abilities to resolve or to tackle the situation as it is. Does that answer your question?
Kind of. Let me ask you this way. My goal is to help or inspire people to create.
Okay.
Right? Regardless of the age, regardless of what method they use to be creative. In the sense that I believe that you can connect with yourself, you can connect with your inner child, you can imagine better, dream better, and see visualization, things like that. Right? Things that kind of, I've talked about this many times, but things that were taken away from us in our society because daydreaming was wrong, right?
Right.
So from that perspective, what do you have to say as a psychologist and a counselor, like to that? Is there any truth to that? And please be honest.
Okay. I can't speak as a psychologist or a counselor, but I can speak from my personal experience of having been done this. Absolutely. And we do this. We are creative in our ways of trying after we understand somebody in how we suggest that they get to know themselves. And absolutely connecting with yourself is very much a critical component of becoming creative. In fact, we say you have to get to know yourself to empower yourself, right? So empower yourself for whatever. So in this case, empower yourself to be creative. You have to get to know yourself better. So absolutely, yes. Getting to know yourself is a big part of that. And like I said, creativity comes in different ways and forms, right? So then we help you understand in what way, shape, or form you can be creative. Some people are creative writers. So they can, some people visualize, or, so that we help guide with that. Some people are genuinely, there is measurements for problem solving and things like that. So we help them develop those abilities and to be creative with that as well.
What's something that in this research that you come across that have surprised you about people, like that has surprised you?
How different individuals are. We've done, and while we do the corporate assessments, I want to also say that we've not had the chance to go much into that because the demand for the kids, children's assessments has been for the 3 to 13 years that we do the talent assessment and the 13 to 21 that we do the career guidance assessment. The demand has been so high that we've really not been able to focus much on the corporate assessments, which is fine. I'm happy with that because the satisfaction we get is also far greater, I believe, with the kids, with the children's assessments or the career guidance ones. Surprised, something that continues to surprise me is when I say unique, I don't mean unique by just, left-handed, right-handed, or I play the guitar, he plays the drums, kind of like there's a lot of depth in the uniqueness of each individual. And, no two people are the same. And everybody that we've assessed comes up with unique combinations of abilities or talents. And in a way that continues to surprise me. And obviously, I'm a believer in God. So, I'm like, creation, each human being that has been created so uniquely. What are there, 7 billion people in the world? And still there's no overlap anywhere?
Right.
But it also, and from that, it also surprises me how, and this is a perspective that has changed since I've been starting doing this, how everybody actually does have a place in the world. Right?
Yeah.
Especially children today who are doubting themselves or wondering, what am I here for? What am I made for? There are children who are struggling with home situations. There are children who are struggling with various other situations. But they have a place. I want to assure you, you have a place in the world. Finding it might not be easy, and that is why we have counselors, we have psychologists, we have these kinds of assessments to help you do it. And in a way, it's a parent's responsibility to help their children do it. Let's be very honest. Nobody else is going to do it for you. It's as a parent, it's your responsibility. If you're an adult, you still have the opportunity to use these tools to figure it out. I mean, we tend to blame our past and play victim, right? And say, oh, if only I'd had this opportunity. Well, you have it now.
Right.
Here I am, right? So that's something that continues to, the uniqueness of people continues to surprise me, and the fact that everybody has a place in this world and they need to figure it out. That's the conclusion I come to eventually with anybody I speak to, is that it's your responsibility to figure it out.
What is it about humans, especially like people who feel stuck in life for whatever reason, right? What is it about them that something drastic has to happen for them to open their eyes to figure out, actually, I have nothing else to lose now. Maybe I should try figuring out what I'm supposed to do. Why? Have you ever pinpointed that out?
I don't know. Because I don't have anything else left to lose is also a subjective thing, right? To each individual.
Right, exactly.
That's a different situation. I will tell you this, that in a lot of cases, people have to get to that point by themselves to figure out where to go next. But I wish it weren't that. Why do you have to get to the point where you have nothing else to lose before you're able to figure yourself
It's
out?
like there's these like blinders that they have on.
Right.
Like I've talked to so many people here, and some, like even when I'm talking to them about the possibilities of getting them out of those situations, they get super emotional because I'm talking to them. I know what they're going through, yet I'm like, think about it. I can help you, whatever. I'll help you get out of the situation.
Right.
But I think about it and let me know when you're ready. I'm about to leave now, and one person I'm waiting on, and I have a bad feeling that they won't. I have a bad feeling that they will not. Something is holding them back.
Right. Unfortunately, again, this is a personal thing that I've seen. Unfortunately, it is until you own it, you're not going to realize that there's a way to. What I'm saying is, if there's a constantly, oh, it's because of this, or it's because of that, or that person did this to me and hence why this, or, that victim mentality.
Yeah, exactly.
And until you realize that, no, it's my life, it's my responsibility.
Yeah.
And regardless of what the past doesn't dictate the future. Right? I think that is something that is a core thing where you have to, even when we get parents who come to us and say, I have nothing else I can do about this kid, you need to help me, right? And we're glad that we're able to help you. But we also I literally had a parent, a couple, I think last month maybe, or the month before that, who said, listen, we're well set. Financially they're well set, their family life, they have a very social life. They're in a good place in their life. We know what our son wants to do. We know what he's capable of. We're already figuring out his university thing. But still, I'd like to invest in this to make sure that we're making the right decisions. Now, that is an approach I really admire, that proactive approach, right? And they're taking that extra step to figure things out, or at least in the very least, confirm that the direction they're going in is better. Those ones are always easier for people to understand. Those ones are easier for us also to counsel, always relative to,
Right.
I have nothing else and it's come to such a situation where I feel like I have to come to you. Because then the options that we can also give them are very limited, right? Because they've already burnt or exhausted so many options.
Right.
And the relationship with the child also has come to a point where introducing anything new or different, there's already suspicion or cynicism on the part of the child. And here's the thing I want to emphasize. A child is a child. They're not going to change. They're not going to do anything differently. You're the parent. It's your responsibility to parent differently in a way that the child responds to you.
Right.
Now, I know parents might hear this and say, wait till you have 2 kids or 3 kids or whatever it is. And I agree, I don't have that experience. But at the same time, the fact that you are the parent And it is your responsibility.
Yeah.
It does not change regardless of how many kids you have.
I'm curious now. So you mentioned you do assessments after 3 years old, right? Let's say they did the assessment and all of those things. Just for me to understand, what does a parent's role look like after these assessments, after they get the education about their child and all of those things, as opposed to a parent who doesn't?
So we're going to break down into 2 age groups then. 3 to 13 is one kind of assessment. 13 to 21-ish is another kind of assessment. So the 3 to 13, we call it the talent assessment, in which we have no interaction with the child whatsoever. It's all about the parents. There's nothing I can tell the child that's going to make any difference to the child. So that the goal of the talent assessment is to help understand who your child is wired as biologically. So what are the connections in their brain? There's the prefrontal cortex, the occipital, right? And then there's this entire left brain, right brain. So we help understand that. We map that. And then we give you visuals in our report. So this much percentage, their left brain over right brain thinking, which means they're more logical in their approach to life than creative in their approach to life, for example. So these are the kind of things that we give you. Now, what happens in almost every instance is parents are parenting based on their experience of how they were parented. And we don't blame them for it. When the kids were born, nobody gave them a manual and said, here's how you do it. So they do it the only way they know how. And their parents didn't have these tools to, evaluate or understand their children better. But now that you do, we sit with parents and we'll tell them, this is who your child is. And when parents see how extensive our reports are and how much information they get, they also then start opening up about, what they do and where they're in line with our suggestions or what our report says and where they have to change. And oftentimes, inevitably, there is always certain changes that parents have to make. So we help them understand, accept, and guide them to doing that. Because it will happen because your child is not a replicate of you, right?
Yes.
So they need a customized something for who they are. So that's what we do with 3 to 13. 13 plus, the approach is more about what kind of capacities you have, what subjects you should be going into, and what kind of careers you should be looking at. And in this, we have AI models where we help predict when the child is maybe 10 years down the line, 20, 15 years down the line, when they actually get into careers or whatever, the post-education. It has to be something that exists. Like for example, in India right now, they're replacing lower courts, civil courts judges with AI.
Oh, wow.
Right? And so if a child says, I want to be a judge, okay, perfectly fine. But then either you have to go to a higher court judge or then judge is not an option.
Wow.
Right? Because there's such a backlog of cases. And basically, they're not, controversial decisions, right? It's straightforward. So AI is just doing that to get through the process faster. And part of our assessments, we assess adversity quotient, which is your ability to deal with stress. And on how, whether if you have an ability on a regular level to deal with stress, like consistently, constantly, maybe not so much, you might need a break in between, or you might not be somebody who might be able to deal with stress at all, right? So when you're parenting, for example, pressuring a child to make a decision that we can tell you that they need a certain amount of time to make a decision. They're not a quick decision maker, and we can explain to you why. And then if they have a low adversity quotient, for example, it's not a good or bad thing. We're telling you this. So we say, okay, when you go to a restaurant, don't suddenly say to a child, for example, and there are various factors involved in this, but just a general example, when you're taking we're going out, go get ready. If the child needs time to dress, and then you're going to say, okay, now you need to decide, So we have parents who say, oh, I want them to be more mature, take ownership for their. So we say, okay, you tell me which restaurant you want to go to. And when there are two siblings, one immediately says, here's where I want to go. The other one, after they get there, fusses about being there because every time the other one gets to decide.
Yeah.
But they're not able to understand why it's that way. And obviously the child doesn't know. But then the first one is a quick thinker. The second one is not so quick a thinker. They need more time to process. So we say, okay, then you need to let them know beforehand. Listen, we're going to be going out to dinner tonight. Or this is the restaurant we're going to. Please decide what you want, ahead of time. So that, these kinds of things. So you have to, but what parents inevitably do? Ayya can figure it out. Why can't you?
That literally... That same scenario happened to us in my family. I'm the oldest, and my younger brother. I think when we went to US, we kind of noticed that from him. And he when he was in Sri Lanka, he was until 10 years old. He didn't get a choice to decide, and I would always, And then when we went there, as he grew like 13, 14, we noticed like, no, he needs a heads up. So even to this day now, I let him, he's actually with us in this trip. I let him know ahead of time what the plan is. That way he can prepare himself. Like even sometimes I don't know what's going to happen. I'm like, this could be what could happen. These are the options. Please prepare yourself for those things. And when I do that, he's fantastic. So we know now, at least, I'm so grateful for my parents who figured that out at a very young age.
And I'm very happy for your brother that you all figured it out.
Yes.
Because it can have a huge impact.
Massive.
And there's a complex that develops with the children. And we see this. I saw this with siblings recently as well, where the brother was just a quick decision maker. Here's the thing also. They change their mind fast.
Yes.
Whereas the other guy... So see, again, there's a strength there. You want some stability, you want some consistency, you're going to go with the other guy. As parents, you need to know, this is the guy that is going to do the stuff. Now, you can't tell the older fellow, listen, you're the older one, so you have to be the stable one to guide us, blah, blah, blah.
No.
No, that has nothing to do with it. It's just older means he came out first. I mean, literally,
that's all it is.
That's all it is. That doesn't mean anything. Other than that. So these traditional approaches that parents have had, I don't blame them, because that's the only way they know how to do it, and their parents didn't have the facility of psychometric. But now you do, and if you now don't take advantage of this, then I would say there is somebody can say, listen, you had this opportunity and you haven't taken it. So it's a different situation now. But these are the kind of things that come out. So even with the career guidance, Aya's going to do this, or, my younger one's going to do this, and so the older one's going to join him. Or I want to bring my sons into business. So they need to study this because my business needs this. No, they don't. You can always hire somebody for that.
Correct.
And your business is going to thrive when your child is going to do something that he finds fulfilling.
Yes.
Right? So real situation. We had a client, the minute he heard about what we're doing, came up and said, I absolutely want to do this for you. A guy who's worked for 40 years of his life, built an entire business, construction business, only child, has no interest in the construction business whatsoever, studying IT. And he literally told us, he said, 40 years I built something I sacrificed everything.
Wow.
Like I've sacrificed to the point where I've sacrificed a good relationship with my son also, because the construction business, especially in Sri Lanka, is hectic, right? And he's a one man running the company. He has nobody else, no siblings, anything like that. So he said, I've sacrificed everything so that I could give everything to my son. And now he's refusing to join the business. So we did the assessment. Very smart kid. Very, very smart. And by smart, I don't mean like book smart. I mean like lots of capacities and talents, but just doesn't want to get into the father's business. And we found a way where his capacities could be leveraged in the business, and for the everyday running it kind of a situation, the father could hire somebody else. So 6-8 months later, when I met the dad, I said, so how are things? And he said, I've started restructuring my business. I've had a chat with my son about where he's going to come in, when he's going to come in, how things are going to happen. I don't remember because the the degree that we suggested for him to do postgraduate was also a very, very unique degree, something building materials engineering or something like that, where this guy comes more on a overseer kind of a role,
Right.
and then everybody's working on him, so he's still doing what he likes, because if you're an IT person, you generally have an aptitude for languages, you generally have an aptitude for quantitative fields, and so we found the overlap for this in the father's business, where the child is still doing what he likes. The father doesn't have to worry about the future of his business, because at some point he told us, I've even considered the fact that I might have to sell this business because there's nobody to take this over after me, and I don't want to do it because I've put so much into it. But now I'm glad that we've found a way where my son can come in and run the business. I can start taking a step back, and I'm restructuring the business in a way that it can still continue, because it's his legacy, right?
Right. Wow.
So these are the kind of things we come with. Now I'll tell you something. To those two wouldn't have ever figured it out. Like this figuring it out doesn't happen. And there might be a stigma associated with considering the culture that we live in and the society that we have.
Okay.
There might be a stigma associated with psychometrics or counseling or things like that, and I understand that, and we get that a lot. Oh, please don't let my in-laws find out I've met you, or
wow,
right?
still, huh?
And we get that, and we work with that. But again, the figuring out doesn't happen. So these are the two. To come back to your question, if I've understood correctly, these are the ways that it actually pans out and it works out. But that conversation is very important to have based on your reports and your results. Here's what we suggest for you.
You even measure like entrepreneurial DNA kind of situation here, right? Like,
Well, there's no specific measurement for entrepreneurial DNA, but yes, we have certain metrics
Right.
that entrepreneurs would agree to be an entrepreneur. These are the kind of metrics that I would need to measure on. So leadership is definitely one. What kind of a leader are you?
right. So I was going to ask you, from your perspective, what traits make someone thrive, not just in business, but also as a whole person?
See, that's a tricky one for me, because I've spent the better part of the interview telling you each individual is unique. And they have to leverage their strengths.
I mean, I'm trying to like find some.
Yeah. So absolutely, and our job is to help you bring that uniqueness into whatever you want to do.
Correct.
Having said that, emotional intelligence is a big one right now, which is also something that we measure, right? The emotional intelligence has primarily two components. One is how you manage your emotions, and one is how you respond to others and their emotions. And this is becoming more and more and more important today.
Yeah.
I don't want to say only in work, definitely in business, even, as a young adult, navigating relationships and understanding people.
Yes.
Because you're no more limited to just the people you can physically interact with.
Right.
Right? So emotional intelligence is something, a higher emotional intelligence is something that's constantly been correlated with success in anything you do in life. The good thing is all these skills that we talk about, these talents, they can be developed. I mean, you can have a 0 for mathematics, for example, and still learn and put enough time into it to get to a point where you have a functional ability or a knowledge to do that. Yes, it will be there's always an opportunity cost. It will be at the cost of maybe what you're strong at and not having the opportunity to develop that. But any skill can be learned, anything can be developed. And so emotional intelligence like that is something that can also be developed. And the ability, for example, to be able to control your anger and still communicate effectively is priceless. And the same with understanding, if you're an entrepreneur, understanding your employees, where they're coming from, what their intrinsic motivations are, for example. If you're an employee, understanding what your boss wants or the people you report to, what kind of emotional states they're in, at what point should you be making what requests or communicating what. I mean, these are just everyday things. We don't give it much thought, but this is, in a basic way, emotional intelligence, and that greater emotional intelligence has been established to correlate with greater success.
First of all, I'm super grateful for this conversation because it's super eye-opening. let's just leave it at Sri Lanka for a second, and this is the final question. I feel so much hope after listening to you, and so much hope. So, as far as like changing the culture, I mean, you've started at the beginning point here. Do you see hope in this kind of way of thinking applied to schools and things like that in the future? And
absolutely. It's one person at a time.
Correct.
That's our approach. But logic says that eventually you'll hit a tipping point. Whether it would take 5 years, 10 years, 100 years, I don't know. But you accumulate enough people who are living fulfilling lives, and then there's a tipping point where everybody else then falls into place, kind of a situation. So absolutely, there's hope. Kids also today are a lot smarter than, I don't know, for example, I used to be when I was a kid, right? And somehow they also instinctively know that things are changing, the world is a little different. And for that, they have to do things differently. And oftentimes, we also see this where parents are like, oh, my children tell me that's how I should have done it, but I didn't. Once they get reports and they're like, so absolutely, there's hope. I want to use the word, I'm cautiously optimistic because infrastructure has to keep up.
yes,
Rules, regulations, systems, processes have to be such that having lived in the US, you can understand how much systems or processes affect the behavior of people or how they go about things. And that's for the adults to do so that the kids can thrive. Or anybody, any individual. Again, our assessments encompass adults as well.
yeah.
So for anybody. So absolutely, there's hope. I'm cautiously optimistic, but there is definitely hope.
I said this is the last question, but if you have to say anything to anybody watching right now, and maybe let's say they don't have the means to get a hold of you or have your services, something like that, what message do you have to say to them, regardless of their age, and they feel like they need to do this, but whatever? So what would you say to them?
There are books that are freely available. Nothing we do is actually new.
Correct.
It's the way we've aggregated and synthesized it and the way we provide the service. But there are books that will help you understand. A book that really changed my life is 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and talks about practical approaches to doing things. If it's a question of finances, then Robert Kiyosaki is somebody who always comes up. Atomic Habits is something that's constantly. So I understand not having the resources, but you still have the ability to make a decision and make a commitment and then stick with it. That's still yours, regardless of where in the world you are, at what stage in life you are, what circumstances you find yourself in.
Yeah, even after they come to you, if they don't make a decision to...
100%.
Right.
100%. If the parents go back and say, bullshit, we're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
And again, that's perfectly your prerogative, right? So yes, even our recommendations, we see them implemented and having said that, I want to say, even our recommendations aren't foolproof, right? There are many variables that come into play. But an example I always give is driving in the dark without headlights and driving in the dark with headlights. It's obvious where your chances of where your safety increases.
Correct.
But that doesn't mean that you're 100% safe.
Right.
There's still circumstances or, a lot of things that could happen. But obviously you're a lot safer driving in the dark with headlights than without. So that's how I refer to our assessments as the headlights of you doing things in the dark. So yes, that is always available as well. But the books are always available. And you have to make a commitment to do it and get it done and see it through. Consistency is a lot harder than people realize.
Right.
But getting it done is what they have to stick to.
Yusuf, thank you so much for taking the time. I really
you so
appreciate this. This has been so enlightening for me as a person who's gone through all these things and wishing that I had it. And I'm actually going to be reaching out to you because I think I see so much value in it.
I look forward to it.
I hope this conversation enlightened you. I hope this conversation at least starts to make you think, especially wherever you are, what situation you're at. Super valuable. And all I got to say is, at least start dreaming, start creating, and start going on your own creative odyssey. Hope that these conversations will help you get to that point. Till next time, I'll see you later. Bye.